What do you mean when you say Foglifter removes the dysfunction of IT relationships? Great human relationships are built on trust. Great marriages, great families, great companies. So what we are trying to do is to remove the things that make people fight in IT and in IT and business. I said, if you think about the process of what happens, the IT, I call them the IT Sherpas, right? The people who are required essentially to bring all the data together and bring it to the business and their peers in IT. Well, the data they're getting is a dog pile, right? And they are trying to pick together. And so what do they have to do to achieve their goal? Well, you build assumptions and then more assumptions on assumptions. You cut corners. You start to round things. You start to build rules of thumb and a whole host of things to actually bring this dog's breakfast into some semblance of order. And then you bring that forward. And usually this is done in a very polished way with people always have beautiful graphs and what have you. But eventually what always happens is the business starts to ask questions saying, well, what about this and what about that? Please explain this piece of data. And then what happens is this amalgamation, which is long since become an exaggeration, and then soon thereafter becomes a fib, and then soon after that really just becomes a lie, right? And it begins to degrade the relationship as the people who are producing this data are increasingly questioned about essentially the quality of it. And they're usually very defensive and very hurt because they've spent countless hours doing this Herculean task of pulling all this data together with all of these gaps and all of these duplications and all of these mismatches. And really that begins the descent. And that descent is not just between IT and business. It also is very, very common between IT and their service providers. This is why most outsources disintegrate within a few years, because it's not that both parties don't like the service. It's just they can't come to an agreement on the cost, and they're constantly surprised, and it creates frustration, distrust, and then eventually the relationship breaks down. So BSO essentially says, look, if we begin to meet you where you are and find these pieces of data, wherever they are, into whatever process, wherever you are, you have to meet the customer where they are and pull them together and then create a means in which we can mediate and validate the data. The data will improve over time and the relationship will begin to restore, and then you can really race ahead as a business. But what happens in too many businesses is they get stuck in these dysfunctional relationships, and then they make radical changes like, well, we're going to do this or we're going to do this, essentially in reaction, just like any bad human relationship.